I've thought a lot about acting for 50 years. 50 years ago, I was a student at the Neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater in New York, and my teacher's a man named Sanford Meisner, among others, who was coeval with Lee Strasberg. They both came out of the group theater, and Lee Strasberg invented this idea called the method, and Sandy Meisner invented this thing that can be called the Meisner technique. And before you went to the Neighborhood Playhouse, they gave you a list of about 50 books. They were all about technique, and they were by Stanislavski and Nemirovich Danchenko and all the Russians and all the Michael Redgrave, Mask and Face, and Shaliapin talking about singing. And it came from a very, very Jewish tradition, right? Because the group theater was a very Jewish tradition. Lee Strasberg and Sandy Meisner was the tradition of study, that the truth can be found in intellectualizing. And so they invented these techniques, and I looked there as I was an acting student. I just didn't understand them. I understood the beauty of trying to find a technique for acting, but I didn't understand how that, other than as an article of faith, translated into acting that I liked. And so I started thinking about it. And so I founded a theater company. I think I founded my first theater company. I was maybe 21 years old. And I said, wait a second, let's start at the beginning. What's an actor actually doing? And this puts me in mind of combat handgun shooting. So combat handgun shooting, following it as we all do, over the course of decades, back in the 50s, the guys, at that point they were all guys, the cops were taught, stick one hand in your pocket and we're going to practice on a bullseye. Stand at 90 degrees to the topic and to the target and blah, blah, blah. Later on, some theorists said, no, that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is you want to use both hands, right? You want to thrust the gun out, right, and hold kind of they call it an isosceles stance, right? One hand is going to, pistol hand is going to thrust out, the other hand is going to pull back, and you want to take a sight picture so that you have three things in a line: the back sight, the front sight, and the target. Your mind can't hold, the eye can't hold that much focal length, so what are you going to focus on? Focus on the front sight. And you let the back sight go fuzzy, and you let the target go fuzzy, and it's a great way to shoot targets. But then somebody came along and said, wait a second, that's really great for shooting targets, but when someone's shooting back at you, there's nobody in the world who's not going to grab the gun from the holster, stick it out over there. Your vision narrows to the size of a pin, and they're going to slap the trigger. So the current thinking was, let's see what people do naturally and train them to do that, because there's no way they're not going to do it. So let's capitalize on that. So similarly, in acting training, we have all these techniques, which they're great techniques, but they don't work under the great stress of, I want to be good, and there's an audience. So my question was, what does work? And my answer was, back to the days of hiking. Don't put it in your pack if you don't want to carry it. If you pick it up, you're going to carry it. So all these ideas of, in this moment I A, and in that moment I B, and my character is the kind of person who, when you take that on stage, all you're left with is, wait a minute, am I going to hit this moment correctly? Am I going to hit that moment correctly? So what that does is it makes you self-conscious. The desire to be perfect makes you self-conscious, which is to say sterile. So you say, okay, how can we make actors other than self-conscious? Well, Stanislavski says, don't tell them to do anything more complex than go over there and open the window. Because that's something you can do. If I say to you, go over there and open the window, okay, or move your chair back 6 inches, you can do that, right? If I say to you, remember the time when your little dog died, you can kind of pretend to do it. Because what's going to happen when I give you a instruction is self-consciousness, because you're going to be saying, wait a second, am I really thinking about the dog, the time my dog died? Am I doing it enough? Blah, blah, blah. So what does it do? It closes you in rather than opens you out. So what you wanted to say to the actor is don't do anything which is not physically capable of being done, which is not something like what the author intended, which is not fun. Because if it's not fun, why would you do it? If acting is not fun, why would you do it? It's not an exercise in getting the moments right. Who cares? I mean, there are some musicians who give such oomph to every passage that you just want to shoot yourself. And that became like the style of singing starting after Barbra Streisand. You had to sing each note as if the fate of the universe depended on it, right? Or you go back and listen to, for example, for Billie Holiday, who knows what she's doing, but it's not much in every bit of its genius. You don't have to save the universe, just sing the stupid song. So the actor has to do something which is something like what the playwright intended, capable of being done, and fun. Get the other guy's attention. Hey, I can do that. Get the other guy's attention. Hey, I can do that. Change the other guy's mind. Well, I'm not quite sure that's physically capable of being done. Most people, casting directors and directors in general, tend to believe that they have an image in their head of what the character would be. And so they see a bunch of people that say, no, 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 no. But what they don't realize is they don't have an image in their head of what the character, they think they do. It's like the radio personality. So what they end up doing is discarding the unusual and ending up with a run-of-the-mill, this looks just like the woman who played the lawyer on the other show. And Sidney Lumet was a great director, and hated the casting process because it's a terrible thing for the actors to go through, and he loved actors, as do I. And he said, okay, the first person in the door who can play the part gets the part. I don't know that that's any less cruel or more cruel. I don't know that it's any more cruel than the other way. Because the real question in casting is not can they act the part, the question is can they act? If somebody can act, right, and they're, you don't want to cast a young woman to play an old man. If someone can act and they're more or less in the ballpark, now I've narrowed down the field. I don't care if they can act the part. Most people come to an audition and come up with their own idea of how the part should be acted, and the casting agent or the director don't know what the hell they're doing, saying, no, that's not it, right? It's heartbreaking, because they don't tell the actor what they're looking for in terms that the actor can appreciate, which is only an action. That's all an actor can do, only an action. So if you tell the actor and the actor, you find out can they do it or not. So since the directors, most of them, and casting directors, most of them, don't understand acting, they're just saying, no, she was a little bit loud, or I really didn't like the way he moved his head, and etc. There's craft, and then there's art. And art is, in the Jewish tradition, prophecy is not the ability to foretell the future, but a prophet is one who has a direct connection to God or to something spiritual. So you would say that Bach was a prophet, right? Bach was certainly a prophet. Or if you look back at there's a woman called Jean Eagles, who was an American stage actress. She was great stage actress in the 1920s. And she did one or two movies. One of them was called The Letter. It was later made with Bette Davis, was very good. But if you look at the earlier thing with Jean Eagles, you're looking at a force of nature that has never been seen before. You say, oh my God, what is that? And Stanislavski talks about two actresses playing the same part. One was Sarah Bernhardt, who was famed for her quote technique, and the other was Eleanor Raduza, who reduced people to a state of raw spirituality. And nobody knew how she did it, and she didn't know how she did it. And he looked at them playing the same part and said, Duza looked like a genius until you check that Bernhardt looked like a genius till you saw Eleanor Raduza. And someone came up to Duza afterward at the stage door, and he was transfixed, and said, who are you? And she said, I am nobody. So there are those actors who are prophets, who something flows through them, and it's not of their own construction, and they didn't work it up in the mirror, but it comes from someone. And Stanislavski says there's three kinds of actors. He says there's the one who says, I get it. This is how you portray grief. Well, I've seen other actors do it. This is how you portray joy. I've seen other actors do it. I can do that. And he says, then there's another type, which is, no. I'm going to figure it out for myself. I'm going to figure the moments out in myself, and I'm going to say, this is what this moment means to me. That's what this moment means to me. And he said the third actors who don't do either of those things. They go on stage and they say the words, and they're gifted with prophecy, and things come out of them that they didn't put in. And that's art. And that's worth anything in the world when you see that on stage. There's certain techniques which, unfortunately, actors don't learn, which are the only techniques that can be learned and must be learned. My wife, Rebecca Pidgeon, did a lot of work with her on stage and on film and so forth, and she went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA, and I said, what were the acting classes like? She said, oh, we didn't have acting classes. I said, what, RADA doesn't have acting classes? No. She said, we had directors come in and direct us in scenes, and we'd learn whatever we could or from not, but nobody approached acting in a technical manner. What they did do is teach you to speak and teach you to stand still and teach you to face out and teach you the other skills, the important skills. Show up early, be kind, let everybody do their job, and you do yours. And those are the great skills. And if you start with show up early, know your lines, stand still. And as Jimmy Cagney used to say, what's acting? Hit your mark, look the other guy in the eye, and tell the truth. So if you can do that, that's the path to good acting. And if you do that and you have inspiration, that's the path to something which approaches prophecy.